Welcome, dear explorers of history. March 15th. Two small ships, the Nina and the Pinta, finally limp into the port of Palos de la Frontera, Spain. Their sister ship, the Santa Maria, lies wrecked on the shores of a distant, unknown land. On board the Nina is a man whose name is about to echo through the centuries, Christopher Columbus. He hasn't returned empty-handed. His ship's holds are not bursting with the gold and spices of the East he promised, but they carry treasures of a different, more exotic kind. Imagine the scene as the gangplank is lowered. The townsfolk gather, their eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and wonder. What strange new things has this Genoese navigator brought back from the edge of the world? First, the plants. Strange, colorful parrots, their squawks cutting through the salty air creatures, unlike any bird seen in Europe. There are also peculiar dried leaves of tobacco, a plant whose cultural significance in the New World the Europeans could not yet comprehend. He presents unusual foods, yams, pineapples, and chili peppers. Flavors that would one day revolutionize global cuisine, but were then just bizarre novelties. He even brought back cotton hammocks, a clever invention for sleeping that sailors would quickly adopt. But Columbus's most controversial and, to the Spanish court, most compelling samples were human. He brought with him several captive indigenous people, whom he called Indians, believing he had reached the outskirts of Asia. For the people of Spain, these were living, breathing proof of a world they never knew existed. Their presence was a spectacle, a tangible link to the so-called Indies. They were paraded through the streets, their unfamiliar features and clothing objects of intense curiosity and, tragically, a sign of the complex and often brutal relationship that was about to unfold between two halves of the world. From the humble port of Palos, Columbus's journey to meet the monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, was a victory lap. He traveled overland to Barcelona, and his procession grew with every town he passed. He was no longer just a determined sailor with a wild theory. He was a national hero, the man who had sailed west to find the East and returned. When he finally arrived at the royal court, he was given an honor almost unheard of for a commoner. He was invited to sit with the king and queen. In the grand hall, surrounded by skeptical nobles who had once dismissed his plan as madness, Columbus spun his tale. He didn't dwell on the hardships, the near mutiny, or the fact that he had unfound the great khans of China or the spice markets of India. Instead, he painted a vibrant picture of a paradise on earth. He spoke of gentle, peaceful people, of lush islands with endless potential. And, most importantly, he dangled the promise of gold. He showed the small gold trinkets he had managed to trade for, presenting them not as what he found, but as a mere appetizer for the immense wealth that was just waiting to be claimed. He was a master storyteller, a brilliant salesman. He promised that with a larger, better-equipped fleet, he could bring back mountains of gold, convert countless souls to Christianity, and secure a new western trade route for Spain that would bypass their rivals, the Portuguese. His words were exactly what Ferdinand and Isabella wanted to hear. Their investment had paid off, not yet in gold, but in prestige. New territories for the crown, and the tantalizing prospect of unimaginable riches. The effect was electric. The Spanish court, and indeed all of Europe, was captivated. The enterprise of the Indies was no longer a gamble. It was a state-sponsored project of the highest priority. The news spread like wildfire. Printers, a recent invention themselves, churned out copies of Columbus's letter describing his voyage. For the first time, a huge population of Europeans had a vivid, if romanticized, image of this new world. Almost immediately, plans were set in motion for a second voyage. This wouldn't be a small exploratory mission of 3 rickety ships. This would be a massive colonizing fleet. The Crown ordered the preparation of 17 ships, crewed not just by sailors, but by soldiers, farmers, craftsmen, and priests. They would carry horses, seeds for European crops, and tools to build a permanent settlement. The goal was no longer just to explore. It was to conquer, to colonize, and to exploit the resources of these new lands. Columbus, now bearing the grand title Admiral of the Ocean Sea and Viceroy of the Indies, was at the center of it all. He had gone from a determined outsider begging for funding to the most celebrated man in Spain, tasked with leading a grand expedition to secure a Spanish empire. The promises he made in Barcelona in the spring of 1493 set the stage for everything that followed. He had unlocked a door between 2 worlds, and now a flood of people, ideas, and ambitions was about to rush through it, changing both worlds forever. His return was a moment of triumph, a spectacle that captured the imagination of a continent. But it was also the beginning of a new, often dark chapter in human history. The discoveries he celebrated would lead to centuries of conflict, colonization, and cultural collision. The cheers that greeted him in the streets of Spain were the opening notes of a symphony whose complex and often dissonant chords are still being played out today. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey into the past interesting, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel,